Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 38 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, getting ready for the long night ahead. Joining me are one Stephen Howard,
whose sibling is also a horrible human being who he does not approve in any way, shape, or form.
The look on Amanda Howard's face here is priceless.
I will definitely not use that to my advantage.
Do you want me to cut that out and send that to you separately?
I think
You're gonna send it to my sister?
me. Yeah, I think she'll believe me.
Did you have an introduction there, Amanda? Did we just
Well,
totally
I mean,
spoil
I was
everything?
gonna say that much like Leanna Mormont, that I wish you good fortune, but I mean, Steven's left it at that, so I think I'm just gonna. You can't just leave that. I gotta take that and run with it.
Steven's got his shovel out, ready to go. He's ready to start digging. Also here is one Nick Castillo.
Who wants to ask Gary, what are you doing? We've never gone this long in a conversation without you insulting me.
And last...
Aww.
And cue crickets. Oh, that's from the episode. Now I get it. Okay. Continue on.
And last but certainly never ever least, one Gary Delaney.
My hero of the episode, the Hound, because every time someone asks me if I've taken Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, I would love to say, I hope you're not going to give a sermon, because if you are, the Lord of Light's going to wonder why he brought you back 19 times just to watch you die as I chuck you over this fucking wall.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that one went somewhere.
Bit far, Gary.
Seriously, like, there's a lot of, like, really pushed, like, funny, like, attempts for funny lines. Like, that one, very much manufactured humor. Still love it.
Okay. Well, we are here to discuss Season 8, Episode 2, titled A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And the only thing on here is Jaime faces judgment and Winterfell prepares for the battle to come. Starting off with the opening here again. So I tried to sit there and watch the opening here again, and I could not make out some of the pieces. I just saw the last part was a dragon again, and I couldn't make it out if it was the rebirth of the dragons, because I thought there was the comet in the background as well, but I may have to just reach out to the internet to see if they could tell me what's going on in the introduction there.
Tyler, you're going to have to upgrade to 8K if your 4K 60 can't tell you what's in the intro.
Well, it just goes by so fast, and I don't like sitting there just pausing.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Are you watching on Blu-ray or something where, like, it's easier to pause? Like, I do know that that's been an issue that I have watching on HBO Max, is I'm, like, doing things like trying to, like, properly quote something funny from the episode, like trying to rewind, stop, play just a little bit, rewind, stop. It's just like, this is not a great interface to rewind, pause. I didn't know if the Blu-rays are any better. Random question.
I honestly, I'm watching it through my Xbox, and I don't have like my controller turned on half the time for it anyways, so it's kind of hard to always be like, yep, stop, pause, everything. But anyways, we are going to jump right in here, and I'm just going to throw it right out here. I want to touch on the trial that quote unquote trial that Jaime's having here right at the beginning. But I'll let somebody else touch on that, because I want to ask just more of a overarching question about Jaime's character here. Do we think at this point in time Jaime's redemption arc is now complete? He was introduced to us as a character who was a terrible human being there, basically. Would do anything for the family, pushed Bran out the window and everything like that. Then slowly, we saw him get captured in the battle, went with Brienne basically north or back to King's Landing there, lost his hand and became like less of who he was, and then slowly rebuild himself into something somewhat of a upstanding person there. And he was the only one to ride north because he felt like his honor dictated that he needed to fulfill at least the vow he made to help the others defend against the army of the dead. So I was just going to ask that question of, is Jaime's redemption arc now complete? Go ahead, Gary.
I would say that it sort of isn't, but as a general opinion on that speech and a lot of other things about this episode, it feels like things were kind of somebody hit the fast forward button. They skipped a lot of what would have been building narrative for this character and this interaction. Like, I feel like Jaime's arc in this episode, the percentage he's in the episode compared to previous episodes, like he is a lot of talky in this episode. So I think they were just trying to jam a lot of exposition for Jaime into one episode, with the possibility, spoiler alert, he might die. So they're just trying to jam crap in. And I didn't really feel like it was a worthwhile, like, redemption arc. I feel like it could have been written a lot better, hashtag poor writing. Also, I really, as I kind of simmered with the episode, I think the episode should have started somewhere else. I think intros to Game of Thrones episodes are good, cold opens should really do something, and I just didn't. I felt like it was a very jarring open compared to he was in King's Landing and he saw Bran at the end of the last episode, and it just seemed like we just jumped to oh, now he's on trial. Like, he walked into the gates. If he was really on trial, he wouldn't have been a free man. He wouldn't have breathed any free air in Winterfell. It felt very jarring to me. I'll pass to somebody else.
I don't know. This is a good question because I think in the complexity of the character that is Jaime in this, and how they are making several characters very complex, I don't think that it is complete. I think that he is at another stage of it, maybe, but I wouldn't. I'm not sure I'd want to call it complete. Just I don't know. It's very tempting to say that it is complete at this point in time, but I still believe he's to an extent flawed. When he has that conversation in the opening, he says he's there to fight for the armies of the living, the people, the living side of the living. He does not say he's there to bend the knee to Daenerys, and that is a key difference, because that means that he, after the armies of the dead are done, what happens then? Gary has a quick joke.
I was going to say, Nick has been very silent. I looked at everyone after I finished my statement. Everyone was silent, and Nick was very silent. I'm going to take that as silent agreement to Amanda.
Oh my God.
I kind of agree with Steven, but I have trouble calling it a redemption arc because Jamie's always felt like his path is he makes his own decisions separate from other things. He does sometimes follow certain things, like he'll go along with his family, but even then, his family, when he killed the Mad King, that wasn't from under direction from his family or anything like that. And maybe he says it was to help his family, and I'm sure it was, but Jamie consistently has made his own decisions in the past, and now he's making them even more separately from his family. So I don't know. We call it a redemption arc because I don't think there's a better word for it. I just think it's a constant just path of him growing. I can't tell if Greg or Gary. I just called you Greg. I think I just keep talking. He's really excited to say something.
I have a
Go
point
ahead.
after yours, Amanda. Actually, I could go next.
Oh yeah,
if you'd
go
like.
ahead, Nick.
Hey, thanks. So I actually would agree with that as well. I don't think it's a full redemption arc necessarily. I would say that that's probably not something that has happened in full, that he's come 180, but he's definitely on a different trajectory than he was. I had several notes in this article too at the beginning of this talking about how he keeps referencing, I'm not that person anymore. So even he sees that he's had a blind spot in the past before. Back to you, Amanda.
I actually did wonder about that a little bit. That Jamie mentioned, or later on, Jamie talks to Bran a little bit about how Jamie wouldn't be the same person, but Bran what if he hadn't pushed Bran out the window, but Bran would still be Bran Stark. And I'm like, what do you want there? These guys are so tied together. Every time they talk to each other, it just smudges the history between them. Oh, Gary has something to say.
Conspiracy
up?
theory number 1.
Yes.
He's a faceless man. He is inconsistent with who he was previously. He's transitioned to, in seasons 1 or 2, he's a very cocky, arrogant, like real playboy. To then he's like kind of obviously tried to do a beaten arc, like where he's beaten down, and now he's just he's an enigma. I think he's an imposter.
An imposter. Jeez.
Maybe the imposter actually killed the real Jaime Lannister, but this imposter only had one hand.
Guys, do we think he's an imposter?
Boo. Boo.
Secretly, Jamie pulls off his face and he's Jaqen Hagar.
All right.
That's all I had. I've got one conspiracy theory down. I thought it was going to be a light episode, so I'm already excited.
Lord help us.
White episode.
Lord help us. All right. So that was gonna be my starting question there. Let's see here. Nick, why don't you take over? What do you got for us to talk about?
I had my initial point was also about that trial for Jaime of sorts. I liked how I had a second likening to this later too, where Brienne is the person who stands up and seems to change the momentum in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think she overstepped her bounds saying what she did? Because it seems that she changes the tone around. Several people are ready to crucify him, in my opinion, Sansa being one of them. And I have a point on this later between Dany and Sansa. But do you think Brienne was out of place that she suddenly said what she said, or should she have defended him with what we know of him thus far?
I think in no way, shape, or form was she out of place. That was exactly why they held a council. That's why everyone was there. If they wanted it to be a secret council, it would have been a secret council. As it was everyone was there. Everyone could speak. We've seen this happen in previous, I don't know what you want to call this, moot, previous moots, where people will walk out from the back and go, "You're an idiot," or something like that. And, fight the charges. And I think she plays her hand very, very well.
Fair.
I mean, I'm definitely biased by the fact that I love exactly that she said the right thing and came in at the right time. But no, I think she wasn't at a place, like you said, they did it publicly. And I mean, the feeling from Dany was that she was basically hoping for everyone to be on a witch hunt with her. And Sansa and Jon seemed not really sure. They were willing to consider, and I feel like Brienne gave them a way to. Not to mention the fact that Brienne's defense of him was extremely heartfelt. Like, you couldn't argue with that. You couldn't doubt her sincerity. And Brienne is such a unimpeachable force in terms of protecting Sansa that, like, you couldn't question her honor there.
I guess I'll agree with probably Amanda that, she is an unimpeachable person. And in the War of the, the Kingdoms and all the lords and ladies, like, she is someone who people truly, probably would have a little more respect for her because she's, was sworn to the Baratheons and now was sworn to Sansa. Like, she's someone who wouldn't have said something if it wasn't what she believed.
It was also a nice chance for Sansa to, like, publicly also invest her trust back in Brienne. It's like, hey, this, like, that gives her a measure of respect too from other people.
I can see that.
I think
that's a good point. Like, because Brienne's kind of an unknown quantity, and like when the Lady of Winterfell says that this like the Kingslayer deserves a second chance, like that's pretty high praise. Sorry, Steven, I interrupted you a little.
No. I was going to say the thing that actually really struck out for me in that scene was how angry Dany got when everyone disagreed with her.
I had that note as well, yeah.
She she's just livid by the fact that no one's agreeing with her. And I also came out with a note, and this is taking it slightly off course of where this original comment came from, so I apologize. But
Good.
she, when she is accusing Jamie of doing all these horrible things to her, is it her dad that it
Yeah.
was, or was it?
Yeah, he
He
killed
was
her dad.
recalling a story from Dad.
I don't understand how she still hasn't grappled with the fact that he was the Mad King, that he was a horrible human being, that he was evil, that he was the worst, and she's able to comprehend this about her brother. I mean, she acquiesced to people pouring molten gold on her brother's face, which I agree with Gary in this case was amazing. Steven's big words. What big word did I use?
Acquiesce? That just
It's
means
not that
agree
big a
with.
word.
Oh, I guess that's yeah. Okay.
You're good.
Were you gonna say a big word for Gary?
We were all with you except for Gary.
But
We acquiesce
It-
with you, Steven.
it
Yeah.
blows my mind that she's able to still have this historical revisionism. There you go with your big word. Historical revisionism.
That's a big
That
word.
I
her
award you no points.
that her dad is still good, and that Jamie wasn't 100% justified in killing him.
I was gonna say like maybe Danny just didn't realize that was gonna happen. Like kind of a surprise because no one really likes the Lannisters. Like even though like he killed the Mad King and still gained no respect from the Seven Kingdoms. Like he like I don't think that Danny expected so many people to be like, yeah, I think he deserves a second chance because she like nothing good is ever said about Jaime Lannister. But also I think, as I said before, I think this was rushed a little bit, that we got to this like aha moment. He's like found innocent. I thought it was a little rushed. Amanda?
I agree it was a teensy bit rushed, but I do wonder exactly what Danny's thinking here because it wasn't like she didn't expect to see Jamie. She had expected to see a lot more Lannisters than just Jamie. And so, yes, she could be tinged a little bit upset here because he's the only one that showed up, so she's taking out her fury on him. But honestly, considering what everyone in this room has put up with from other people, I found it surprising that in the past she's also done this where she wants to be mad and get her vengeance, but she does expect everyone else to let their past wrongs go. Whereas here she expected them to agree with her, like, hey, we should do this, even though literally like she didn't know John's true parentage at the time, but I mean her father still killed John's grandfather.
Maybe just a quick comment before you, Tyler. You are right. It's history matters for her. It doesn't matter for anyone else. Their history is pointless. Her history matters. Sorry.
And while
Tyler,
I don't
sorry.
and while I do agree that like I mean if I was facing somebody that had killed one of my parents, I probably would be like I cannot believe you, after all this time, after all this I'm facing you, I used to dream about what we would do to you, and yet you're a queen. A different standard of behavior is expected out of you.
That's true.
Go ahead. I'm not entirely sure whose turn it is.
It's my
It's
turn
Tyler.
because Gary's sitting there yelling to himself while muted.
Yeah,
which is
that
great.
Yeah,
was
so
why
for
I was
everyone that wasn't
wondering.
for everyone to know, Gary, for about half of Amanda's comment, was ranting at the screen. Everyone could watch him rant. Not a single word he was saying got through because he was muted the entire
For
time.
clarification, I was trying to clarify like the family tie was like a great great grandfather. So that's why I was just questioning. Yeah,
I feel like
it doesn't
was
matter.
a grandfather.
What do you mean great
It was like
grandfather?
John's grandfather or something.
John's perceived grandfather.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
John-
it's still his grandfather.
True, yes.
It's
One
meant for his
grandfather
father.
murdered the other grandfather.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Gary, deep. Yeah, that was
Also,
also why I
just
was
a
trailing off in my sentences because I'm kind of staring at Gary go berserk on camera.
sorry. Just as my aha moment of like one grandfather murdering another grandfather, was that before or after they were betrothed? Was that before?
Who?
Like, so Lyanna literally forgave
Lyanna,
Rhaegar for.
Lyanna was never betrothed to Rhaegar. Rhaegar just took her, essentially.
Yeah, well, like
But
we
they were in
missed that
love.
story. Yeah, but somehow they didn't tell anyone. Like no one knew. It was the conspiracy theory, Gary. Like nobody knew it.
The heart
But
wants
did
what the
she
heart
know
wants.
that her father was murdered?
I do
Like,
wonder
I
that
think
actually.
that's what I meant. Is like there was this secret love child, but like one grandfather murdered, or one father murdered the other, like couple's father, and I was like, that seems really complicated. Anyway, I've interrupted a half load of people. Tyler, you're up.
What he told her was true from a certain point of view.
Ooh.
You get out of here. You get out of here.
Tyler.
Okay, I'll finally go. The only thing I wanted to make sure we didn't leave the trial scene without talking about was Brand's line that he just dropped there, the things that we do for love. It's great when you can make callbacks like that.
Bran with the passive aggressiveness. He doesn't want to do anything about
But
it,
it's
but he's
not
not above
Bran.
throwing it
Okay.
out there.
Yeah, but see, that's the
I'm
thing
not-
too. They want to have their cake and they want to eat it too, because it's not Bran. He has said so many times he's
yeah.
not Bran, but he's just willing to drop these passive aggressive lines for the sake of the viewer. It's willy nilly. It's like,
He's not Bran, but
on,
he's got this pettiness and snark from the start.
right?
Right. He's more Bran than he thinks he is, apparently. It's easier for him to not
He's-
feel like Bran, but we definitely still see some
How
Bran.
about he is the edgy three-eyed crow? Ah.
The more teenagey, angsty.
Oh,
three-eyed crow.
teenage angsty.
I was
three-eyed
gonna say angsty, like angsty.
See, Gary and I.
crow.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds like the worst. That sounds like a that's what they're going to do at some point. It's going to be a remake of Game of Thrones with all angsty teenagers, which is basically
What
where
do you
we're
think
at.
these guys are?
Honest
Yeah.
to God, it's where we're at. Oh, that's
What do you think
painful.
Or you
Arya
think
was
he
for the
did.
longest time?
You just need a few more head neck
She gets dranked
slides
out
from
this
Danny.
episode.
A few more neck slides from Danny sitting up there saying, "If we had caught you, this is what we would have done to you." Yeah, and then a harsh locker slam in the background.
Okay, Nick, instead of rewriting Game of Thrones
Boo.
as a high school drama, do you have any more questions you'd like to talk about?
That side tangented just a little bit, but the way that Brienne presented that, when she stood up, she seemed hesitant at first, like she shouldn't speak, and so that's where my question kind of came from. To me, it seemed like she wasn't sure if she should say something, but I agreed with what you all were saying. The way that she presented her argument was unimpeachable. She had the right comment at the right time, and it totally changed Sansa's point of view. I think several other people in the rooms as well. So
I
that
think
was
she's
that
just
was what,
bashful. So I don't think it was any sort of
right.
she didn't
I
think
think
she
it was
could.
how she presented it. Yeah,
Because
or
she's
the
not a knight.
actress.
Not yet.
Very true. Yeah, everyone else is a lord. You know, we haven't really heard from random fighters in the room. Like Jorah hasn't jumped in and said anything in those conversations, so maybe that's why she hesitated.
Yeah, she feels like she's too low of station to be standing up and talking to all of these lords and ladies.
I think she's just shy in this regard.
Yeah, she's not shy in battle, but in terms of talking in front of lords and ladies,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. She did it perfectly. Danny didn't think so.
Danny did not think so, not in the least. So I had.
She wanted to know, what does the Warden of the North think? It's a very much equivalent of like, well, what is your father going to say?
Right. There's a lot of regard that the people in the room hold with one another, even if they don't have the title for it. And so hearing the lady of, I mean, she's the queen. In that situation, I think people would distrust her in that situation even more than they may already do. But being queen, she could hear Sansa's opinion change. She could hear Brienne's testimony. She could hear the Warden of the North say we need people. And she could very easily just say, I'm the queen, kill him. And people would have to react or then deal with the consequences of the queen giving an order and nobody doing that. So all heck could have broken loose in that room. Amanda.
I also feel like that was also a very public example for once of Jon listening to Sansa. I think he already had his opinion of willing to
Fair.
trust it because he's come further from trusting other enemies. But I mean, Sansa's multiple times been like, "You don't check with me, you don't talk to me, I just want you to like, I have ideas and thoughts and stuff." This time, like, she gave her thoughts, and honestly, she was respected enough. Other people took that too. It wasn't just John or Danny having no choice.
Have there been? This is a random question, just interjected here. Have there been many interactions between the Bastard of Winterfell and Jaime Lannister? There really haven't been, have there?
Just
Jon
everything
Snow
from
and
season
Jaime?
1, episode 1,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Okay.
So not really directly, I don't think. They would definitely know of each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
No, I had that for that scene. I'd mentioned, like Steven said, just the anger and hatred in Danny's eyes, founded or not. And then the other part in that one of those earlier opening scenes we talked about a little already with Bran having that conversation with Jaime. We can come back to me if you want. I don't have to go through the whole episode, just my notes.
Well, I mean, did you have another point that you wanted to throw out to talk about, or want to pass
I,
it
ha-
off
I
to
had
somebody
that.
else?
I had that one, and then the later in the episode when Danny comes and talks with Sansa in the room after Lord Royce, I think is his name, leaves, and she opens up with this line of like, "I think we were almost about to agree with each other," and to me, that whole scene was kind of like, I thought we were going to be good friends. She has the awkward line about like sisters later on, and I think she's just kind of like trying to find a foothold with Sansa, and Sansa's having none of it. And I think either the off screen or what was meant to be on screen but didn't convey well was the passage of time where Dany is just playing the card she has where she thinks she has allies. And I think in this scene, one by one, we kind of see them slink away from her in this episode. And I think she's feeling more and more alienated in an alien, in a form, more and more foreign in a foreign land. And my thought was, is there a lot to be benefited if she comes in completely humbled? I mean, she's meant to have this great demeanor and she's queen. You know, that does carry with it a certain sense of you're supposed to be somebody. If she's completely humble, I think that would be who we want her to be. But I don't know. I wonder if that undercuts her message of who she is, that everyone's supposed to follow her into battle too much. What are your thoughts there? That was my other point. Just in that
So,
takeaway. Because Danny's desperately trying to make friends, but I don't know if she can at this point.
so I guess I'm kind of lost in what the question is. Is it basically like, is Dany's demeanor when she arrived to Winterfell the right or wrong way she was supposed to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
Uh,
Danny decided to burn bridges, and she did burn bridges, and now she's realizing that, hey, this is a country with a lot of rivers. We shouldn't have burned so many bridges.
how
You guys couldn't see the look on Steven's face, but it was thrilled as he got to denounce his favorite character.
I'm curious here, Stephen. Like, from what we've seen so far, I'm trying to piece out what your answer was. Like, what have we seen her do though? I mean, sh I think Nick's right. She has come into a foreign land to her as an outsider, so she doesn't understand the culture and everything like that. So, what has she done though, really to alienate herself, or maybe burn the bridges or something like that? I'm just generally asking
I
that question, not trying to like disagree just yet.
No, I understand. I think it's the imperiousness that she comes in with. She comes in with the swag and with the feeling that she owns everything, that she is literally, as she sees, the queen, that she is going to berate anyone and everyone for their history while saying all my history is just,
Did,
just give it
did
up, just
she
forget
did she
about it,
cast the Imperious curse?
get out of here. Anyways, um, but she is she's attacking people, she's making herself distant and hard to like, and she is telling everyone that any past trespasses that the Targaryens may have committed against them are in the past. Leave them be. That's fine. It's everything should be fine. But if you have transgressed on her house in the past, she will single you out for having been having done X, Y, or Z to her. And in that way, she's coming to a new land, and I guess maybe she's not. Burning bridges is probably the wrong allusion to put there, but she is sowing a crop that I'm not sure she wants to reap. How about that?
So then, essentially, basically, your argument would be she's coming in too heavy, basically, into the area, and not being able to adjust her tact there. She's basically just coming in too strong that everyone will follow me because here I am, power.
Yeah, because she's devout. I think that's probably right, and I think
Okay.
that it's. I don't think that it's not an adjustment. I don't think she wants to adjust, so I don't
Yeah.
think we should put that word out there.
Well, like she should be adjusting somewhat to the culture.
She
but
should. But
she's not making that logical choice, like the smarter choice, maybe is the way to phrase. She's not making the choice to make that adjustment.
Yeah.
She thinks she just keeps going
Wiser
this way.
choice.
Yeah, there we go, Nick. Yep. She just keeps going this way. It's going to eventually work, or something like that.
yes,
Gotcha.
yes,
Okay, Amanda.
I honestly, I think Danny came in here not trying to make friends, but like a kind of expecting that she would just she either comes into a place and is loved or is hated, and then usually if she's hated, she burns the place and leaves. And if they do like her, they usually like her of her own merits. But John warned her that the North doesn't like outsiders, but he also, I wonder if he told her like also just why. Like she kept on saying to Sansa, like, I'm gonna be, God, I don't have the words. Basically, like, I am your queen, all this jazz. However, but she expects the North to just obey her, but she doesn't. Sansa told her, like, what about the North? Like, we have suffered through all of this stuff, and she wants the North to just love her, but is not even intending basically on taking care of it. Like, what are you gonna do for them? Talk to them about that. She could be a good queen, but Dany's not. I don't feel like she's trying to make friends. She's feeling unloved, and that's fair. I mean, if I walk into an entire country of people that hate me, I'm not gonna feel. I'm gonna kind of shrink into myself too. But she needs to win
If
them.
it's in the consequences of my own actions.
She could be doing something to win them over. I feel like she does. She is charismatic. People do like her often, but she's just being like, no, they have to like me. I'm their queen. Okay, well, that's worked out many times throughout history. Go ahead.
I agree with the point you made there. I agree with what Steven said too. You had a point, Amanda, there about she walks in not trying to make friends. Right, she's not. She's trying to make subjects. Like they don't have to
Allies.
respect me, but what?
Allies. She's not.
Allies.
I agree. She's not trying to make friends. She's trying to make allies.
Right. Yeah. And I think that kind of thing of everything she's done thus far too, like Steven said, the history of the Targaryens in Essos, no one knew who she was, so she could walk in and be like, "I'm the queen. This is what I'm going to do," and everyone's just like, "All right, you're helping us, perfect, because we know you as of like yesterday." Whereas here in Westeros, she can't just sit at the table in Winterfell and nudge over at Sansa and be like, "Lannisters, am I right?" Because there's thousands of years of history there where everybody knows who the Targaryens are. Everybody knows her family name and they know her father and what he did. So there's all this. Yeah, I think that Steven's got a very valid point there about there's nothing that she's really tangibly done. It's just like the tact and the way she goes about it. I had a thought in my head about her soft skills, like her people skills are not great. She's very charismatic and people follow her dynamism. How
Ooh, she
dynamic
doesn't
she
want a
is.
job interview. Boo, soft skills.
But it's her, it's easy to win over allies and it's easy to win subjects who are enthralled with you, but to build those relationships and build, just like what Amanda said, what's going to happen after this war? How are you going to treat the North, or what's going to be our relationship? One ruler, one leader to another, and it's those types of things where I think Danny's doesn't really have those skills quite yet. So, yeah. I agree with what Amanda and Steven said, but I don't agree with what Gary said. Just want to put that on the record.
Never
Tyler.
agree with Gary. Yeah, so I think Amanda, you kind of really touched on it too. It's like the two diametric views, opposing views that she's trying to contend with. Of like, she typically goes into a place and they either love her or she burns the place to the ground because they put up a fight against her. And then also too, she's dealing with a strange land that has the history of, like, she doesn't understand it, but it has the history against her family. So she's not taking into consideration that history as well with all of her conversations with everyone. So yes, people skills are struggling for her.
She mentions in the book that like there's all these names, these family names and place names. They don't mean much to her. They're just words in a book that she's read and never visited. And I think the history for her is easy to dismiss as as trivial until she's here and surrounded by these people that like, hey, stuff that's happened to them is pretty big too.
All right. Nick, did you have anything to keep going with that, or?
That was really all I had on that second point. It wasn't really an answer to my question, but it was good. It was good discussion about it. I was just kind of trying to get at the heart of what other options does she have for people skills, and more or less, it sounds like the answers aren't much. Her soft skills aren't really there, so the way she wrote in was the only way she knows how.
I think too, it's just a problem of like the situation that she's in with everything going on. That like her skills are not great, and she's only making everything worse. But they're also up against the fact that, again, this goes to the view of what is the bigger threat going on right now, and it, in my view,
Right.
it's the dead that's coming there, and not the Iron Throne to the south. Gary.
I guess I had one more kind of question or point or something I noticed in that Daenerys Sansa interaction was that I feel like in the last couple seasons you've seen Daenerys in a lot more like leather outfits or very like slim sleek outfits, and in this last couple episodes Sansa's wore very like kind of that same aesthetic that used to be in a lot of Daenerys outfits, and her outfits since she moved north are very like fluffy and very like fur coat-ish. And I just thought that was interesting because I felt like it when you see them both in a scene of like this wardrobe just doesn't really match. But then again, both of those characters have had a little bit of transition of where they're at, where their characters are at, and how they want to present themselves. But I just thought it was interesting in that interaction. Nothing to do with the blah blah coming out of their mouth. Just their outfits.
I
You
actually
know
thought
me,
that was a good
little
point, Gary.
fashionista.
I was interested in that astute observation, Gary.
Yeah, like I liked it as well. I noticed it too, but I attributed it to she's a girl literally from the south, and she's up in the north. She's got to wear a much bigger coat than the locals do. She's not used to this weather. But I didn't actually draw that comparison to the more militaristic outfits.
Maybe the symbolism is Dany is putting on more protective layers from her perceived enemies in her camp, whereas Sansa is comfortable in who she is and her status.
And I can't really remember what outfit it is. It might be like when she's on the boat at the end of like a previous season. Like she's on but yeah, Daenerys is in a very like leathery outfit, and then like it just, and maybe it was just to kind of draw some comparison, like, but it just seemed like a diametric switch for those two characters and their wardrobes. So interesting.
Diametric, that's a big word there, Gary.
I'm going to need a detailed explanation of what that word means and the proper use of it in a sentence.
Diametric means die, as in fashion, and metric means a measurement, much like a tailor would use to measure an outfit. Diametric.
This is
Look
very
it up.
erudite. This is very erudite conversation. I
I
like
can't
it.
wait for the first
When Gary
edition.
speaks, I diametric inside.
I can't wait for the first edition of the Gary Dictionary of Big Words.
The Gary Dictionary of Big Words. I love it.
I support that message.
I'll take a break for now. I have more, but I'll take a break.
I do have one point about this conversation here that I want to push back to the group here. Sansa's comment is, "What about the North?" You know, so, and maybe I'm just going to answer my own question here now as I'm talking about it here, Because again, this goes to the larger problem of what is more important right now: the fight against the dead, or what's going, or, the Iron Throne that somebody will sit on someday. So maybe, like I said, I'm going to answer my own question that this is probably a conversation of what happens next. Whereas, is Dany only thinking up till the battle against the dead, whereas Sansa's trying to plan out further if we should happen to win, what happens next? Gary.
I think maybe somebody touched on it about like not that she doesn't understand history, but also maybe just the fact that she doesn't understand the microcultures of Westeros. That like the North would have a very much a belief that like they've always been in the roots that they feel like they could and should be of their own free country. But and the same with like the Riverlands or the City of Dorne, like understanding that those areas have their own culture and their own like way they think, and all she probably comes into that with is like they are the seven kingdoms. It is my birthright to be the queen of the seven kingdoms, not realizing that they wouldn't be the seven kingdoms without Dorne. Tyler.
No, it's not me. Nick doesn't understand. He has to put one of his fingers down because he's next.
Oh, that was what it was. We are sitting here and I'm trying to figure out which one, and you put your finger up like number one. I'm like, who is going next?
Oh, so
What's
let's
happening?
go to Steven then. Steven, what do you got to say?
I see how it is.
Crap! Now I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, we're going to Nick then.
Yeah, go to
Give me a
Nick.
second.
I win by default. I was going to comment on that. Her comment is a lot of what about the North, and I'll answer your question, Tyler, with the Three-Eyed Raven's comment of what makes you think there is an afterwards. Yeah, I think the greater threat is much more the looming White Walker invading army than what happens to the North afterwards. I get where Sansa's coming from, in the sense that the North does want to be its own entity, and she's had so many people treat her poorly. She doesn't care if she's a queen or not. She just doesn't want to have to answer to anybody else, so she knows that she'll be safe and left alone. I feel like that's a conversation for another time. The greater threat is the White Walker army, and whoever needs whatever they need to get through the long night, and then you can have those conversations. It should be the focus.
I feel like, based on a total Winterfell massacre, the line of succession would mean that the group that walks forth from the rubble that was hiding in the dungeon, she would be their new leader by default. So that's why she cares what happens after the battle, is because if by chance Daenerys still lives, then she still is subservient to Daenerys. I don't know. That's my conspiracy theory number 1.5. Steven.
Well, and so this is what I was going to say. Coming back to the idea that she is also in charge, all these people's well-being is basically hers for the North. Because Jon has made very clear, while he is a representative of the North to an extent, he cares less about the North than he does about the living. The only person who truly puts the North number one first front is Sansa right now. And so Sansa has to take into account and actually look at the what's going to come about after this. And this is maybe the political science major coming out in me. You have way too many examples throughout history of people who made a quote unquote good deal at the time to save their butts and then end up with a horrible, even worse person ruling afterwards. You have to consider what is happening here.
I gave myself a half conspiracy theory because I didn't say conspiracy theory at the beginning.
Okay. Sorry. But she has to actually look out for what the future is here, because, and I think it's actually the smarter play for her as well. If she dies, it doesn't matter. If they live, it matters greatly. So it behooves her to talk about it right now, because one way or another, this is going to be her future.
All right. I think Nick, you said we can move on to somebody else. Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
I had trouble taking notes about this. This episode was a lot of um everyone getting ready for the battle, and I think it's a day or so before the battle is kind of my understanding of the timeline here. I did like it. I do think there wasn't like a huge amount of stuff happening because it focused on each individual's like preparations and them kind of coming to terms with it, which is nice because other times in other battles we've seen them only take a couple minutes to themselves or whatever as they focus on whatever is going on at the time. This was a lot nicer. But I did write specifically 3 different things here in a row. Dany blames Tyrion. Jorah talks about Tyrion. Dany praises Tyrion. I thought it was a fascinating little jump there. Because Dany, I wonder what was going through her head here, or if it was just in the passion of the moment when she made that comment to Tyrion about like, well, apparently you just don't know your sister. You thought you knew your sister or whatever, which was an easy comment to make, so maybe Tyrion shouldn't have quite set himself up for that publicly. But it's still pretty heady to blame your hand like that when you're trying to get respect here and you want him to truly be supposedly be respectable.
Well, that goes right back to the idea that history matters for everyone but her.
Possibly. But very interesting that Jorah was the one to come to her. I am curious why Jorah was. I wish we could have gotten some more of the information. His reasoning was that Tyrion was the smartest in the room, but he also didn't explain. I assume the second person he spoke of was Sansa, but he didn't give any reasons for that. I would have loved some more information about why Jorah was thinking the way he was thinking. But it did lead to Dany praising Tyrion publicly, and do you guys think she was actually like that she actually is suspicious of Tyrion, or was she just lashing out in the moment?
Yes.
That
Sorry,
is not a yes or no question, Steven.
it
You have
is.
to
It
pick
is.
one.
Okay, so I was trying to make because I keep cutting in front of two people here. I think she is both, yes, very conspiratorial minded, and I also think she is just lashing out because she's an angry person.
Are we allowed to talk here, Steven? Or you could just
I'm
keep cutting us off?
sorry. I'm sorry.
So I did want to jump ahead a little bit to the inside the episode part. They did make a comment there that this is kind of like the viewing of like everybody's last night together. They're all kind of just preparing, talking to one another, doing stuff, which we'll touch on a little later on, I'm sure, in this discussion. A couple of points in particular, I'm sure, but I had also written down though too that it seems like Tyrion is on the decline politically. Like ever since they've basically come to Westeros, about everything he has done has been the wrong tactical, like military tactical move, and also too like trusting Cersei was wrong, and he's now being shown as this person who wants to save everybody instead of the person he left Westeros as, of this like very angry person at everyone there. Cue the big speech he gave in the courtroom saying he would have rather seen everybody burn there than he saved them all and everything like that from Stannis' army. So it seems like Tyrion is kind of like, ever since they've stepped foot on Westeros, has now just kind of slowly gone on the decline, both as a character and just the intelligence of the character there has just changed dramatically, it feels like, from what he was. And a lot more dick and ball jokes there seem to be coming out from him too. Nick.
That's interesting. Well, first of all, I had my finger raised for a point on Amanda's comment about how Jorah was the one to speak to Dany, and just because we had that previous conversation about Brienne speaking up towards Sansa, it's interesting that kind of like those sub main characters are the ones who are changing the main quote unquote characters' minds. It's just an interesting difference than how we usually see the main characters talking to one another. I mean, they're all main characters, but those people who aren't perhaps as politically prominent, they're, the second in commands, the lieutenants, as it were, are the ones who are speaking up and people adhering to what they have to say as worthwhile as well. So I just thought that was interesting alliteration there. To the point that Tyler just made, I don't know. I not like adversarially, but I think I disagree with that a little bit. I think that the stakes are higher in this go around with Tyrion. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself, when he was Hand of the King for King's Landing, he did a phenomenal job. Varys even has that comment. You did a great job when you were Hand of the King. I think that in this sense, he's not just Hand of the King, he's trying to help conquer 7 kingdoms. So the stakes are perhaps higher. And he himself, I think, in this episode, even has a comment when he's walking the halls there, talking with Varys and Jorah, saying, "I made a mistake that many clever people do. I overestimated my opponent," or something like that. And I think that he does know people, and clearly many people have spoken to his great communication skills and ability to win over audiences. But maybe he bought a little bit of his own hype. I think he is, in fact, on the decline, but I also think that the stakes have been raised to a point where maybe he's reached that tipping point where even his charismatic or his abilities are being matched by the level of the game that they're in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Gary doesn't think so, but he's not going to agree with you regardless. But
Gary's a hateful person. Go on, Amanda.
I do wonder now, like they don't have that much material from the books to work with right now because the books do not exist for this point in time. Like I would like to have seen a little more of Tyrion's other ideas. If every single thing he's done lately has been bad, I could see Dany's frustration with him. I think I would remind her that she has the power to fire him in a heartbeat, but like in King's Landing, it showed like all the stuff, him going places, all the different strategies he was working on. Like it did show him busy all the time. Whereas here, it mostly shows him looking troubled and looking at and staring at people.
Yep. And so what I was going to say is I think this actually predates his move to Westeros. This starts off with when he gets in the position with Dany as a hand. He has all those. We talked about this. How I thought they basically sold him under the rug when he was in Slaver's Bay, and he made the political concessions with Slaver's Bay, and they were like, "Oh, they only know military stuff," and he's like, "Well, let's talk to him and find out." And guess what? They only would listen to military stuff, so he looks like an idiot there. They sail across the sea, and I feel like I agree with Amanda. I want to know what other things he would be proposing, because I'll be very honest at this point, I would have fired him. If every single thing that he has proposed has failed, and it has, he obviously doesn't have the pulse of the nation or the pulse of the world, the pulse of whatever's going on. He doesn't have it. He might be smart as hell, but he does not have it. And I think that we are as an audience, are very attached to Tyrion. But I would probably say if we were to get tally up every single one of his measures that he has suggested since he's been in Slaver's Bay, and I think this is a writer's thing. I don't think this is actually how he'll be written, but I think this is a writer's thing. I bet you maybe 2 or 3 have succeeded out of maybe 10 or 20. And it is a fantastically low success rate. And it's not just the strength of the job. It's not just that they're playing against harder opponents. They've been playing against hard opponents the entire time. You can't tell me that the Siege and the Battle of Blackwater was a JV squad that they were playing against. Yeah, you get the reference there. But that was it. He's been doing this the entire time, and it's only now that they've exited the books that he looks like a moron. And I think it's how they're writing him. I think, to go with what Gary might say, it's bad writing. And as he is in the show right now,
Poor writing. Correct word choice, please. Poor writing, not
your
bad.
face is poor writing.
Ouch.
Yeah. But as he is right now, I would have fired him. He has no reason to be there. He has no reason to be an advisor. He has no help.
I just don't know who we would replace him with. If I was Dany and I had made the terrible choices I'd made, if I got rid of Tyrion, I don't know who else knows the families well enough. I mean, yeah, he's terrible, but I think, like Tyler had the comment too. No, you had the comment, Stephen. Plenty of people have made decisions based on the hopes that the outcome will be better, and then it's much worse. I agree, it's probably a poor statistic line, but if you get rid of Tyrion, I don't know who would be a better substitute after him. They may win more, but again, winning friends and allies isn't necessarily the best outcome of all this. You want someone you can trust. As so many of these families have backstabbed each other.
Let me, real quick before we go on, let me address that, and let me say that I think then you have him as an advisor. You don't have him as hand. Hand, you're making, you have to be trusted and you have to make good decisions. Advisor, you can provide all the context you want. And he would be, in that case, a great advisor. At this point, he's a horrible hand.
It's me. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's my own understanding of the job title. If I'm demoting somebody from hand to advisor, but I'm relying still heavily on their consultation, I feel like why not just keep them as hand then? Otherwise, your hand is just a patsy who's going to ask, here's what I say, but you're going to listen to the advisor still. That's me. That's not against you.
No, totally
I was going to say too. Sorry, what?
It's totally against him. He understands.
Totally
yeah, I do. It's upsetting.
Don't worry. It's against Gary somehow more so than it is against you. I had my hand raised originally, and just really quick, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Tyler. I didn't answer Amanda's question, which was, do I think that she was bitter or angry, Dany, at Tyrion, or was she conspiratorial? I think she was just lashing out. I think Dany in this episode, you see later on, like when she goes back, like you had said, she goes back and forgives Tyrion. I don't think she was ever mad at Dany. She was angry at the situation that she thought everybody was going to tar and feather Jaime at the beginning of this. And one by one, everybody turns against her. And then she has that interaction with Sansa, too, that just probably drove her up a wall. So I think that she was more angry and bitter in the moment than she was at anything else. My response. Tyler.
I'm going to go back to a line from, I don't remember what season. Well, this would have to be 5 because this is when Tyrion and Dany first meet. Dany talks about the wheel that crushes the common folk around, Kings of Westeros, the Baratheon, Starks, Lannisters, all of that stuff. So I think you talk about somebody who knows the area, knows the families and stuff like that. I don't think if Dany were to do it all over again, maybe she wouldn't choose somebody who knew that information, because what does it matter for her ultimate vision of reclaiming the area and destroying the families that were there, destroying the wheel, because none of these people stood by, none of these people like came to her over there. And I'm probably going off the wrong track here, but basically what I'm trying to kind of say is just like the knowledge of the area is not a deciding factor, I don't think, for her. I think it was Tyrion's counsel and everything like that, but her ultimate goal has nothing to do with who rules what area. It's ultimately she takes over, and then everyone is subjective to her will or bends to her thoughts and everything like that. So yeah, it all made sense in my head here, and then of course as you start talking, it just doesn't come out correctly.
It always does.
Tyler, that's what my whole life is like.
I am aware of that, Gary.
She does make a comment to Jorah at one point, or maybe he makes a comment to her, and she's like, "You weren't here. I couldn't." Like insinuating that she would have chosen him as her hand, which I thought was interesting because I don't. He was like a right hand man for a while there, but I wouldn't have equated that with hand. I guess I just felt like he was missing something for that.
What else did you have, Amanda?
I'd love to talk about the little fire scene, the little fireplace watch group at the end there, but does anyone else have anything first? Let's hand it off to someone else.
Okay. Steven, do you have anything that's not the fireside chat and sing along?
Sorta, kinda. I think I may have referenced this before, but the sex scene with Arya still just weirds me out, because in my mind she's still 14, and I get it. Teenagers have sex. It's what they do. I do think it's funny. I looked at a outline of what happened in this day, or in this episode, and it is described as Arya seduces Gendry, wanting to experience it before they die.
Okay,
What is it? Who knows? But
Steven,
yes,
follow-up question. Will George write it like that?
yeah, almost
I
certainly.
would say yes.
Almost certainly.
100%. That's how the George R.R. Martin books are written. Like,
Oh yeah.
so if anything, they made the show. Like, I have no question that that was artistic license by the Daves. Like, that was how George would write it. So
Yeah, no,
I
David
just
Dan.
assumed it was
So it's one thing.
2 Ds. Sorry.
It's one thing being able to read about it and it being able to kind of distance yourself like that. It's another seeing who's the actress that plays her, Maisie Williams. Maisie Williams looks like a 14-year-old. So it's another thing seeing her get naked on screen and have sex with a guy who looks like he's 21.
You look like a 14-year-old.
She was also
Do
20 by
I?
then, though, Steven. So
I know. I understand that. It's I know it's cognitive dissonance. It's just something that weirds me out, and I understand it's just me, but it's something I wanted to bring up anyways. Really, everything else is just those conversations. Just so many conversations in this episode, and it. I guess maybe before we get to the fireside chat, just going on what Amanda says and how we had what was the episode before where everyone basically arrived, and that was kind of a big get together episode. This is everyone meshes, and in that same sense is a big get together episode. It's supposed to be presaging something coming up, but it's I don't
Do
know.
you feel, trying not to spoil, do you feel like this is an intentional farewell episode for several characters?
This is definitely something they set up to be like a goodbye to some of the characters. It feels like it's definitely like goodbye to some of the characters.
So
I don't think that's an overarching like
real quick,
spoiler. Is that
no, someone's gonna die. But I think actually this is I think the Daves, I think they did a fantastic job
Dave and
about
Dan,
whatever their names are.
D&D.
The 2Ds.
The 2Ds.
They did a fantastic job about not really giving away who was going to die, because I could not tell from this episode who was going to die, how many people were going to die, etc.
I'm going to adamantly disagree with Steven.
Really?
They did not give it away who was going to die because they gave everyone the same mediocre writing of like interactions. Everyone had very like 90s sitcom interactions with one another, like very like surface level, like nothing really deep is happening in these character interactions. Like
High
it's
level.
very much just a lot. Some of it's playing to the audience, I think.
Like high level characteristics of that character, like you had mentioned in your opening segment there of like the Hound, his disdain for the Lord of Light and all the religious stuff there, how he talks about Beric, he's gonna throw him over the castle wall there. That's more for the audience. They're like, haha, get it. He doesn't like the religion.
Yeah, like it's a fun joke, and there's kind of some of those similar like kind of fun like interactions. The other, just as I mind, fun interactions is that on a rewatch I caught, Pod is told, okay, maybe a half a cup, and you see on a rewatch I saw Tyrion fills up his cup to the brim until it's overflowing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of that, but on a surface level, like going back to Steven's point about that we felt as if anyone could have died. I feel like it was so like this. It was so mediocre writing. Like the big like interrupted conversation of the episode is like between Jon and Daenerys, and then it's like the bad guys are coming, and it's like, okay, like let's just manufacture that like the bad guys are coming right as you're having this conversation. Anyway, Nick,
I want to disagree with you a little bit. I can lean on poor writing. I think that's fair. that there's not a lot of time. I mean, they have an hour with 20 different characters to have meaningful conversation. You're set up to fail. But I can confirm that there is a level of brevity that comes from people who are in life and death situations. It's a way to deal with it. You hear oftentimes people in law enforcement, people in the military are often critiqued as having very dark senses of humor because that's the only way people can cope with some of the things that they've seen and the traumas that they have. It's probably written in such a way that it conveys that, but that is a thing too. It could be conveyed very poorly through the writing. I'm not saying it's not poor writing in this instance, but making light of the situation or throwing out a poor joke may be a way that some of these people are trying to deal with the situations they're going through too. So, I don't know. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but from another point of view, that's not that far off either. I know plenty of people in the military who have situations like that where it's hope we don't go die, when that could be what happens tomorrow. And so it's a sense of, yeah, it's dark, it's light, it's meant to poke humor at things, but that may just be how some characters in this instance are meant to portray it. Because the reality is very true that everybody who's gone up against this army has not lived to tell about it. They haven't died yet. They can't die, is the whole premise. It's not like we can defeat the army of the dead by killing them. So there's a level of inevitability, I think, in that discussion as well. Tyler?
So my question to kind of touch on this setting up people to die part is to have everyone kind of do a little exercise and think back to before this episode had aired or as this episode had aired. Does anyone kind of remember of who they might have thought was going to die or how big of a loss was it going to be? And to kind of start it all off here, I don't remember anything about my thoughts. I thought there was going to be a lot of casualties. I couldn't tell you who or what. I know just based off of the theories and stuff that I was reading, everything like that, I was like, okay, John's probably going to survive and Danny will probably survive. But other than those two, I didn't really have anyone else kind of on my list here.
Clegane? Do you feel like Clegane was going to survive for the Clegane Bowl?
Oh, that's right. The Clegane Bowl, yeah. Yep. Thank you for reminding me of that. Insert the air horn.
That was all about that Clegane Bowl.
Nick, go
I
ahead.
used to say Sansa maybe. Anyway, to Nick, sorry. I'm just thinking out loud.
I definitely remember having these conversations early on, Tyler, about I feel like a lot of people are going to die. I don't remember who. I don't remember how. I think everybody sat down and work out different scenarios in their heads about how it's going to happen for each character, and thinking it may be something profound, it may be something just they're written off screen. But I thought a lot of characters were going to go because there's so many in this scene. You see so many people who are a prominent first name, last name backstory in this episode, and they all are meant to have those little nuanced interactions of tomorrow may be my last day. And so it's interesting to see this episode going into the next episode. I thought a lot of characters were going to bite it.
I entirely agree. I thought there was going to be in a little bit of a not masochistic, but in a little bit of a mean way. I was kind of hoping that there would be kind of a thinning of the fields as well, because we had not experienced a major character death in quite some time, and it was kind of getting away from the
another
the feel.
Another Sept of Baelor explosion there where we thin out the cast.
Yeah.
Yes, because we're getting so close to the end as well that, I mean, what are they going to do with all these characters? And that's why I was when I went into this episode and I was watching this, I'm like, I feel like almost any of these characters could die, because I think that would be a peak Game of Thrones move, is to take that one character that you just feel can't die and just, I don't know, axe to the head or something. Jon. I think that would just have shocked everyone to have just killed Jon right away. Or not right away, but maybe at the end of the battle. Who knows? Kill off Jon, though. And that just, I was expecting one major death and 2 or 3, maybe 4 medium, quote unquote, death. B characters in Gary's parlance.
Parlance. I I guess like and now that I actually think about it, and I'm probably the exception to the rule because I haven't skipped ahead at all. Like I couldn't even tell you now how many people are gonna die in the show because it's been so many years I've forgotten the next couple episodes. So I could even just say right now who I think is gonna die because I've completely forgotten these episodes or washed them from my memory. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to give anything away, so
Mhm.
I mean,
I will give everything away.
I know you will.
I
Amanda?
stopped guessing a while ago because I was still shocked consistently by how what I thought were major characters, these are definitely going to survive until the complete end, are literally memories now. And it's
Mhm.
easy for us to be like, see, they didn't even matter in the end, but them watching their journey just is what made it mean so much more to the next characters that did carry on. So yeah, I I think the only one that I felt for sure was I always thought Danny was like the central character. So I thought she'd be safe, but I wasn't sure about anyone else. Not John, I don't know. He's already died once.
I see. That was the thing too. That would have shocked everyone. Kill him, bring him back, just to kill him again. That's a George R. R. Martin move right there. Sign off on it.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I was just gonna ask here if Gary, if you had any other points that you wanted to talk about, or we good to kind of roll into.
I do. I have a random like small one. This is just like a crazy what I would call a background character like that I didn't remember seeing. It's just in the background, and that is the wolf ghost is on the ramparts. Doesn't say anything.
Hmm.
No one even pretends he's there, but there's a wolf
He's a
in the
ghost.
background of the conversation.
He's a ghost.
Did you
Yeah.
expect him to have a full conversation with somebody there, or he's a good boy. He's
Like-
just gonna sit there.
Like there
He's a
should
good
be
boy.
like I don't know, somebody comes up and he barks at them or growls at them or bares his teeth, but like literally
They just had to show
it
there.
could have been an afterthought. They could have just like not CGI. What am I? They could have like visual artist him in the background. And then again, those wolves are visually like added later, like after season 2. So I'm sure that's all it was. They just drew him in the background. But I thought that was a good, like, just a random character of like all these fun, like, you know, very forced interactions. There is no interaction between John, Sam, or anyone else and Ghost. Like the 3 Night's Watch people are on the ramparts and they're having this heartfelt conversation. Ghost is in the background, completely ignored.
He's a good boy.
The goodest
I
boy.
didn't even
a
notice
non-
him. I'm sad now. I'll have to rewatch.
Rewind. A non-fireside
Rewind.
conversation is that Sam gives the Tarly family sword to Jorah. Wondering if that will be better explained in the book, or do you think this was, you know, actually part of the book, added for plot, or explain what happens to a sword that Sam got 2 seasons earlier to wrap up a thread that maybe somebody was paying attention to? Like,
Yeah, I would probably just think maybe something to close the thread there too. I mean, Sam was never going to use that in the battle. That thing is way too big for even Jorah. Almost, it feels like.
is it a two-handed sword? I don't know if I've ever actually seen anyone wield it. Like, it's like a two-handed. It's between any of the other Valyrian steel, between
It's,
ice and
it's bigger than
uh,
Longclaw, which Longclaw
It's
is
bigger than
called a
Longclaw,
bastard
smaller than
sword or a
ice.
hand and a half sword. It's
Okay.
definitely like smaller in like blade size than ice was, I think. But it's still definitely like the handle of it is definitely. It seems like it's a two-handed sword.
Ice. Now that was a good sword. We should talk about ice.
Let's
I
talk
know.
about ice. How was ice built?
So remember when they melted it down, symbolizing the.
Yeah, god damn it. But no, like I would say that, like, yeah, really cool weapon. I think it's just like tying off a thread. And that's how that was one of my random questions I wrote down. Was like, do you think this is even a relevant storyline in the book? Like, or will it be better? Like, they're just, if it's actually in the book, I just think there's a lot of narrative that was probably cut out. Nick?
I saw it more as Jorah being a man deemed without a house, getting the heirloom of a house, and it being, in a sense, his tie off to his story. That if he gets something to go into battle with, he has a better chance for survival going into tomorrow, because we don't know. I don't know. That's how I saw it as.
I don't know. Like, I was trying to figure out if it's like a swap because like all of the great men in the Tarly house are gone, but technically Sam has a bastard child who could be a Tarly. And there's probably other Tarlys. There's probably Tarlys coming out. Or is it to assume that there are no more men in the Tarly line after Sam? So like this is who he wants to adopt him as his son.
No, just not
Tyler's
legitimized.
just shaking
children.
his head.
I
Like
think,
I'm just like going,
I think you're going way too far into that thought there, Gary. I think it's more of kind of, I think, touching off of what Nick said there, of like wanting to kind of give something to Jorah to kind of complete his journey there of he gave up a Valyrian steel sword when he left Westeros. Now he is taking one back to fight for Westeros there.
so much like other Game of Thrones fans, I read into like a much deeper narrative than exists.
Well, I mean, we are at the end of the show here, so there's not really many theories left to dig into. It's a lot of
That's why
surface
Gary's
level
inventing.
stuff.
That's why Gary's inventing conspiracy theories.
Gary's
There you
inventing
go.
conspiracy theories for the show.
Conspiracy
that's already
theory number 4. Gary's inventing conspiracy theories.
Did you have
I'm
anything
disappointed
else?
in you. Now I skipped 3. Now I have to keep a different count. Yeah, I think we can jump to the fireside chat.
All right, I wanted to touch on just one quick thing here. We don't have to talk about it, but just to keep this in mind, that Bran sits down with Tyrion and has a conversation about his history. Maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? But yes, let's get into the what is dubbed by a lot of people as the last Game of Thrones moment in the show Game of Thrones. A group of people sitting down, having a conversation, chatting with one another, preparing basically for what is to come. A lot of great conversations, and we get to hear Pod's angelic voice sing to us Jenny of Old. Is it Jenny of Old Town or Jenny of Old Stone?
Old Stones.
Stones. Do you
Jenny of
remember
Old Stones.
much about that, Nick? There, I know it's like it's a song written in the book, and then they like listening to the after the episode part there. They talked about there was like the first verse was in the book, and then they added a little bit more to it for the show, and then obviously the Ramin Dawji composed some great music to go along with
Oh,
it
yeah.
there. But like
I don't remember all of it, but it was one of the Targaryen kings, or who was in line for succession, perhaps, gave up his right to rule because he fell in love with a random. Though it was probably just a woman, but she was like foretold to have some small witchcraft ability, and she was just by herself. Old Stones is a town in the Riverlands, I want to say, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And she's Jenny from Old Stones, but just this random woman who like was barefoot gypsy, lived in the woods, and I want to say Egg, but I forget which Targaryen king it was, but one of the later ones before Aerys the Mad King, and gave up his line or his right to rule because he fell in love with this random woman and ended up just moving away with her and living out his days and her days in poverty. And so it was this, just like the song sings, very like she was a sweet woman, she was very kind, she was very odd, but it has this like haunting tale of like maybe she bewitched him. Something to that effect is what I remembered.
okay, thank you. But I guess I mean to touch on probably the biggest part from that whole fireside chat there is Brienne essentially like completing just her life's ambition dream there or whatever and becoming a full-fledged knight in this world, which is probably like one of the purest good moments basically the show kind of gives you, because it's so great to just watch there, because here she's got Jamie, the person she very much admires and respects, and also probably has a secret thing for, being willing to knight her so she can basically be kind of equal with everybody else. Gary.
Glass ceiling shattered.
Is it the last true Game of Thrones moment if you're giving the audience exactly what they want? Like I feel like it was very, very fan service. I feel like there was a more Game of Thrones way to do that, but
that's not
just my hot take.
No, I completely disagree
Steven.
with that. And I
I
disagree with
accept
that.
that you disagree with me. If if you agreed with me, I'd be more concerned.
That's also fair. So I completely disagree with you because I think that was a very, I could feel kind of the intimate atmosphere. It'd be like all of us in a room together with just like a fireplace burning. We're all drinking bourbon or something.
You feel like it was an earned moment? Like you feel like it was an earned moment?
Hold on. We're all drinking bourbon together. We're all having a good time. And one of us is like, Tyler, I've always really wanted kind of like to be a podcaster. I've never been able to do it. Tyler's like, I'll make you a podcaster. Here, let me show you. It's easy. We can just do it right here. I bestow upon you the title of podcaster or something like that. And it feels organic. It feels like something that would happen if you have a bunch of, I don't want to say they're friends per se, but at that moment they are all friends drinking together before some major conflict in this cozy little atmosphere going on. It feels very organic for me.
I thought they did that scene exceptionally well. It felt like, especially for Brienne, because it goes to her face, and like she says something like, "I don't want to be a knight," and Jamie's like, "Oh no, come on, I can do this." And like after all the mockery she's endured, after all the scorn and like people literally mocking her for being a knight, she is very good and adept at being able to discern that in others' voices. If in fact she's usually too quick to assume that they're mocking her. And in this, like, she can tell there's not a drop of that. It's completely genuine, and they, like, organic, to use Steven's word, they do it very well, and none of them feel like they're forcing it. Gary. No, wait.
All up on a previous. I'll give Nick.
I'll be kind. I'll let Gary go, even though he jumped in front of me. That's all right.
Follow up to a previous conspiracy theory that I think the actors did do a very good job. However, previous conspiracy theory, good actors always die in Game of Thrones. To Nick.
I too like the word organic, Steven. They're all just kind of standing around like, I always wanted to be a knight. Well, anybody can make, any other knight can make another knight. Really? Well, shit, let's just do it. Like it's one of those conversations that they stumble upon. This is within their power, and Jamie's willing to do it for a friend. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that happening with just
right?
people in the area standing around. I don't think that's fan service. I think that's earned. That's something that, yeah, like she said, she always wanted, and a lot of people know that she's probably perhaps the most honor-bound, righteous person there, as far as what the code of the old knights are. So yeah, I could see that being something that was earned. It's a nice payoff for her character story at this point of where she is, and to get it, it's like what do they have to lose? Like even if they can't do it within their power, tomorrow may be their last. So it's something that is organic and earned.
It's also, very few knights exist in the North. I don't remember if they say so in the show or if they say so in the book. I know it's at least the book, because the knight's vows usually are said before like a septon in like in a sept and whatnot, and the North believes in the old gods. So Bran also has the distinction of being like a knight in Winterfell who was knighted there.
Okay, I have a challenge. I have a challenge for next episode, and that is beings that I do not fully remember who lives or dies in the next episode. The challenge is, what's the count of dead actors in the next episode? Good actors, bad actors that their characters die in the next episode.
Do you want like full named characters or what?
Full named characters.
There's a ton of extra characters that die.
Named characters, and then make your count. Good actor, bad actor. Did they add or subtract from the show? and then see which we lost more of.
Gary, by this episode, how many actors do you think are left that are bad? Haven't they all
Define your
died out?
definition of bad too.
Gilly,
Ouch!
Poor Gilly.
You can F all the way off. What did Gilly ever do to you?
the 2 remaining Starks.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh no, wait, no,
Bran,
sorry.
Sansa?
I'm thinking of the 3 Starks. Arya, I think, is passable. Sansa and Bran, I think, are
Bad actors.
serviceable
characters?
serviceable actors, as they were child actors who had who only reason they still have the role is because they had the role in episode 1. Like,
Holy
I
cow.
feel like if
Dang.
one of them would have like lost an eye or something, they would recast it and it would have been much better.
There's an
Oh,
eclipse.
wow.
out
Wow,
here,
that sounded
man. You saw all
terrible.
sorts of
Wow.
shade.
Yeah.
How bad is it when even Gary says, wow, that did sound terrible?
Like, I was trying to figure out a reason you would legitimately recast an actor. Sorry,
You know what
I
you'd
just
really,
thought of
you know,
eye.
hey, speaking
I-
of someone who's watched oh my gosh, what is it? Not Leviathan Wakes. What is it, Amanda? The TV
Oh, The
series.
Expanse?
The Expanse. The reason why you replace an actor is because he sexually assaults people, and he's oh, that is our baby, and he's a horrible person like that.
That was
By
a
the way,
contradiction of
that's
one
their actual
statement.
baby. He didn't say sexual assault. That's our baby. It was sexual assault,
Oh.
comma. That's our baby.
Good clarification,
sorry.
Nick. Thank you for
Just
that.
throwing that
Yeah.
out. We're
My-
following you, but for the people listening,
Yeah, my child is yelling in the background. Sorry.
I mean, sexual assault. That's my baby. But
Anyway, you can or don't you do or do not have to play along with my game, but I'm just gonna try to remember to keep account.
Yeah, I'll let you bring that up, Gary, when we talk next episode here.
Okay.
what was the previous question? I had my finger up for that, but then I got sidetracked with what Gary was talking about.
I have
We
no
were just
idea.
talking about the scene there.
Okay. Yeah. No, it was good. I liked it. It's this sombering of what's to come while everyone has their moment of levity and enjoying each other's company. Even if they don't really like each other, they're enjoying the company that they're not going to die alone, perceivably. And then the soft, somber, perhaps even like, what's the word for it? It's not a eulogy, because a eulogy is spoken, but that's the final song given for a funeral.
Exodus.
No, it's all right. There's a word there.
Farewell accompaniment.
It's all right. That's all right. Something there. But there's like a final. It's not the right phraseology, but there's like a final taps that's played or something. Is the song is how I saw it.
My hot take. I felt that the pod song was a little intrusive. I felt like somebody else could have sang it, or it could have came about in a slightly more organic way.
You are just a horrible human being.
So you don't think that there could have been a better way to, like, it felt very forced to me, of like, hey, anybody know a song? And it just like goes around the group, and I think on a rewatch I knew it was going to be Pod to sing because the camera effing centers on him in several shots, and I was like, this feels very forced. Like, and then they had some like go to different people, like, who wants to sing a song? And it was like Thormund Giantsbane looks at him and it's like he just grunts, and I was like, this could have been a little more I don't know. I just think it could have been a little more natural than it was. That's all my hot take was, is that I feel like it could have been.
You're allowed your hot take. I'm not saying it was perhaps the I don't know. I guess I was working towards the phrase there of maybe it wasn't the best writing, but I don't know. I thought it fit well. My that's subjective. You're entitled to your opinion.
Could you have had that song sung by like Sansa to Theon?
No.
Also on a rewatch, I didn't catch that one of the cutaways was like Sansa and Theon. Like, I was like, oh, because they're now buddies.
Well, they've been buddies for several episodes because he saved her. They both jumped off the ramparts together, and they were going through the forest. The reason he comes back, I would argue, to Winterfell is because Sansa is there. Theon,
He's secretly in love with Sansa.
no. Maybe feels he owes something to
Conspiracy theory number 5. He's in love with Sansa.
Gary, just
I gave
because
you
there's a
4.5
male
at
and a
best.
female on the screen and they like each other does not mean they want to be romantically connected to one another.
4.5 at best.
He doesn't have a penis. Pff, duh.
I was saying plutonic is a big word, Tyler. Plutonic is a big word.
Does that mean from the planet Pluto?
Yes, it's the mineral you mine on the planet Pluto.
Pluton.
I got a good Steven laugh out of that joke, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that Pod's the only one who can sing that song. Obviously, the song is ambiguous until we hear it because we don't know like that song. It's not like people are like, "Hey, sing the Star Spangled Banner," which every audience member would know. It's something where we don't know what the tone is going to be until it starts being sung. I think that Pod sings it, he gets away with it because like you feel that character is going to do something based on who's doing it. If Tyrion starts singing, it's probably in that moment, since he's drinking, going to be something inappropriate. Like you said, Tormund Giantsbane's going to sing something from his culture, which isn't known to be something really beautiful. But the fact that Pod does it, Pod throughout the entirety of the show has had these moments where his character is overlooked and thought to not be that deep, and he gives this amazing little like nuanced, addition to any conversation. It's like we think he's going to fail when he goes to the whorehouse and he comes back with the best story.
Yeah.
We think that he's going to be this written off character and he survives to this point in the story. We think that, he's going to die if he goes off with Brienne, and he comes back in several scenes in this episode training and sparring and in fact teaching the other Northerners how to use a sword. So the fact that like we expect his song when he starts singing to be this sort of like little cute whimsical thing, and realize it's this, in my opinion, again subjective, beautiful little undertone of solemnness and quiet, I'm trying to think of the right words here. I don't know, like rationalizing what we're all going through kind of thought. It adds much more to the scene. I thought it was very organic, and I thought that it was great that Pod did it. Yes, Gary.
Hot take 1.1. What if one of the Lannisters started singing the Rains of Castamere?
It wouldn't fit in this scene. I get that you're trying to find something else, but I don't think that would work.
That was just my sarcastic 1.1 of like, because that would be an interesting callback for me. It doesn't fit at all.
I grant you,
or like somebody starts singing the Rains of Castamere and they're like, whoa. Like maybe something a little more upbeat.
The Rains of Castamere does have a certain solemnness to it. I keep coming back to that word because I can't think of the right kind of word I'm thinking of. But it's a different tone. Like the Rains of Castamere was all about how like if you undercut the Lannisters, you will die. Like it's a lot about how the Lannisters got to the point they are because they completely killed off the.
Anyway, it was a joke, Nick. I just was like thinking of like a different song that it was just I had a little chuckle to myself about them singing the Rains of Castamere. Mostly because I feel like we just need some Tyrion singing, but
it's
Jamie, maybe some Jamie singing.
It's a different song because they're going into uncharted waters. It's something that we haven't heard yet on this show.
Anyway, that was my hot take. Who is running this next silly question?
Hot take, more like shit take.
Oh. Need some ice for that burn.
All right. I guess the last little thing I wanted to touch on here, and we kind of touched on it earlier too, was Danny learning the truth about who Jon actually is and who his parentage actually is.
Snap.
I do want to comment here too. It's kind of funny that Jon is down in the tombs where all the women and children are supposed to be going, and there is no one there other than Jon. I mean, it's almost
I didn't
like
think about that.
poor direction is going.
Or
on
that
here.
somebody would have been preparing that area for like,
Yeah.
siege
It's
supplies.
still dimly lit and everything like that. There's nobody else down there but John. And then
They're
shortly
all
after that,
making
the horn
they're making
blows.
weapons, digging trenches. Nobody has thought to move them down there yet.
They're waiting until the last moment. Oh wait, the horns just blew.
Oops.
Whoops.
Exactly. They're
Darn
already
it,
taken.
guys. If only we could have known they were coming. Like, if only a group of people had just showed up a little while ago and had told us.
Right.
Weird.
Oh, strange how that happens. Um, if that's it from everyone else here, then I guess there's not really too much to touch on from the inside the episode stuff there. They kind of mentioned how, like, at the war council scene where they're talking about the battle plans and everything like that, that there's a lot going on under the surface of, Dany trusting Tyrion or wanting to trust Tyrion. All of these other people are kind of thinking about different things. They touch on a little bit about Jaime's trial, how Dany views him as a murderer. Tyrion made a mistake and Dany is tired of it. Clever people overestimate their own cleverness. And then
Mhm.
they kind of comment on Brienne might be in love but doesn't quite know it yet with her feelings towards Jaime. And Dany comes to Sansa with an olive branch, kind of she feels as a monarch to her subject there. Really, that's not quite the case for that, but as we already kind of touched on that too. So that is it for me and inside the episode stuff. Gary, it looks like you have maybe a final thought too.
I had a final thought, and that's that I as a whole, I felt like this episode was kind of rushed, and I think it could have been kind of more elaborately built. Does anyone else feel like this episode could have been stretched out to like 2 or 3 episodes, as the common joke is that everything in this last season got rushed? That we could have had some of these interactions a little more naturally, and not felt like they were all jammed into one episode, and like the next episode was going to be a battle. Like, it could have, happened a little slower, and we could have told a little more interesting story. Tyler.
I'm gonna. So again, I've constantly joked throughout this last couple of seasons here that we've gone over that there's only been X number of X number of hours of story left to tell with this show here. But for this one, like, I can't quite like disagree with you. I'm not going to totally agree with you though, so don't mark me down for that. It's just because it's just such the
Put that
nature
bad juju on me.
of where we're at with the show that, like, yeah, you could have extended this out, but I mean, what would we really have done other than just have longer conversation with everyone, or, battle preparation and stuff like that could have been extended out, but like, what are you ultimately going to do? And again, it's just the nature of where we're at with how they decided to do these last couple of seasons, that you've just started compiling everything together, and we can't, yeah, definitely more would have been better. I would agree with that, but with where this episode sits, I don't think there could have been too much expanded out with how they did it here. Nick.
I'd agree with that. I was going to say, yeah, of course I'd love to see more, but that's probably more so me just wanting to see more. I love this world. I love the character interactions. And so, I mean, when you think about it, I agree with what Tyler was saying. Logistically, there's not more that they really could have thrown into some of those conversations. I mean, the conversations off screen, like I was thinking in my head, the initial one about how when we talked about tonight, like suddenly we end with Jaime seeing Bran for the first time after like the entirety of the show, and then we jump to his trial, as it were, in the throne room. I mean, realistically, what probably just happened is they didn't get a chance to talk to each other. They're both just standing there. Someone would recognize Jaime Lannister, of all people, the captain of Cersei's army, commanding enemy's army, grabbed him, brought him in shackles, told Dany we have him, and then there he's at her trial. Like that's probably the extent of what happened. So it's not really like there's something profound that would have built up more of those types of conversations in that instance, particularly. But I mean, I don't think that there's more you could have added to it. But would we like to see more? Yeah, sure.
What if you as I was thinking of how you could expand it, and yeah, there was a definite like this is the preparation day. What if some of this episode, or if you expanded it more, could have done a little more time jumps or Tarantinoing into the battle of like
Tarantinoing.
kind of making what is a very spoiler alert, the next episode was really long and a lot of battle-y shit. And this episode was really long and a lot of blah 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 blah. Intercutting those two to kind of make some slightly more balanced episode. Also, it just in my pure evil part of my heart, I think that would have been a fun episode to watch, because the next episode, the darkest episode in Game of Thrones history, and then having to have to intercut with normal adult lighting. That just makes me laugh. Of the going joke was the next episode, everyone had to turn the brightness on their TV up to max, and then you had to intersperse with like scenes in normal lighting. That just makes me giggle. But anyway, that's all I had. Could we make this longer?
Yeah, it's a good question, but like I would just go back to like what I said though. It's just the problem is what we're at with the story now. Definitely would have loved to see more conversations and everything like that, but yeah.
That was all I had.
I think that'll do it then for this episode for us here. So for next time, we will be watching, as we've been discussing here, Season 8, Episode 3, titled The Long Night. The winter has returned to Winterfell. All right. Thank you, as always, everyone, for listening. We hope you have a good one.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
So we're gonna die Winterfell.
Yeah.